From the beginning of our journey, 20 how many years ago, we've always put what we believe and love first. You know, if when you earn money, and this is a privilege, that's a byproduct of what you do.
For decades, the story seemed simple. The Spice Girls conquered the world. Then everything fell apart when Geri Halliwell walked away. But what if the real story began much earlier? Newly shared memories from inside the band, combined with years of candid interviews and revelations from all 5 members, paint a far more complicated picture. Most recently, Melanie C exposed what really destroyed the Spice Girls. Behind the scenes, the girl power image was already under pressure. Melanie Chisholm, better known as Mel C or Sporty Spice, revealed the story during a 2026 appearance on the Louis Theroux podcast. She recalled that the crisis began with a single offhand remark after the 1996 Brit Awards, when she jokingly told Victoria Beckham, then known as Victoria Adams, to F off as the group was leaving the event. She never meant to offend Victoria. This kind of harmless teasing was fairly normal backstage. But this time, the joke landed very differently. Whether because of the stressful atmosphere surrounding the band or because emotions were already running high, the comment quickly escalated into something far more serious than she ever expected. Almost immediately afterward, Mel C found herself confronted by 2 of her bandmates, Melanie Brown, known as Mel B or Scary Spice, and Geri Halliwell, Ginger Spice, told her that her behavior had crossed a line and was unacceptable. The group's management made it clear that another similar incident could have devastating consequences. She recalled being warned that if her behavior continued, she could lose her place in the Spice Girls altogether. For a young performer whose entire life had changed almost overnight, the warning landed with enormous force. Speaking years later, Mel C admitted she was terrified. Ironically, the Spice Girls had built an empire around the idea of friendship. Girl power was more than a slogan. It was one of the defining cultural messages of the late 1990s, encouraging confidence, solidarity, and mutual support among young women. Fans watched interviews where the 5 members laughed together, teased one another, and appeared inseparable. Their personalities, sporty, scary, baby, ginger, and posh, felt carefully balanced. But how secure was the group behind closed doors? We'll get to that shortly. For now, let's rewind a bit. 5 completely different women forced into one perfect image. Long before the Spice Girls became the biggest girl group on the planet, they were an experiment. In late 1993, father and son management team Bob Herbert and Chris Herbert of Heart Management set out to create a British female pop group that could rival the chemistry and commercial appeal of successful boy bands dominating the charts. Instead of searching for 5 singers who looked and behaved alike, they deliberately pursued the opposite strategy. An advertisement placed in The Stage magazine invited young women who could sing, dance, and perform with confidence to audition. More than 400 hopefuls reportedly turned up. Over several rounds of auditions, rehearsals, and workshops, the field was narrowed until 5 young women with dramatically different personalities remained. The original lineup was not quite the one the world would come to know. The first 5 selected were Melanie Brown, Melanie Chisholm, Victoria Adams, Geri Halliwell, and Michelle Stevenson. Stevenson possessed a strong voice and had initially secured a place in the group, but as rehearsals continued through 1994, she found it increasingly difficult to balance the project's demanding schedule with family responsibilities, including caring for her mother during a serious illness. Heart Management, meanwhile, questioned whether she shared the same level of commitment as the others. Eventually, Stevenson departed, and in early 1994, she was replaced by 18-year-old Emma Bunton. The change proved pivotal. Bunton's warm personality and youthful image completed the chemistry that millions of fans would later recognize almost instantly. Each member soon evolved into a distinct character that was instantly recognizable. Melanie became Sporty Spice, the athletic, energetic performer known for tracksuits, high kicks, and powerful vocals. Melanie Brown emerged as Scary Spice, outspoken, fearless, and bursting with confidence. Emma Bunton became Baby Spice, projecting innocence, sweetness, and playful charm. Victoria Adams, later Victoria Beckham, was labeled Posh Spice, embodying glamour, sophistication, and understated confidence. Geri Halliwell completed the lineup as Ginger Spice, the flamboyant, outspoken member whose Union Jack dress would later become one of pop culture's most iconic outfits. Interestingly, the now famous nicknames were not originally created by the group themselves, but were popularized by the British music magazine Top of the Pops in 1996. The brilliance of the concept was its universal appeal. Rather than presenting a single image of femininity, the Spice Girls offered 5 different personalities that fans could identify with. Whether someone admired Sporty's determination, Baby's kindness, Posh's elegance, Scary's boldness, or Ginger's charisma, there was a member who felt relatable. It transformed the group into something larger than a band. They became 5 distinct brands operating under the one name. That diversity helped fuel extraordinary commercial success. Their debut single, Wannabe, reached #1 in more than 30 countries, while their debut album Spice sold over 23 million copies worldwide. Merchandise ranging from dolls and clothing to lunchboxes and video games flooded stores, each encouraging fans to choose their Spice Girl. But the very differences that captivated audiences also created challenges that no marketing campaign could hide forever. Behind closed doors, these were not fictional characters. They were 5 real women in their late teens and early 20s with different backgrounds, priorities, personalities, and ambitions. Geri Halliwell often pushed aggressively for publicity and creative direction. Mel C focused intensely on musical quality and vocal performance. Victoria tended to be more reserved, while Mel B's outspoken personality sometimes clashed with others. Emma, the youngest member, often found herself navigating between stronger personalities. Even before the Spice Girls signed a major record deal, during their time with Heart Management, the group became increasingly frustrated with songwriters and producers who treated them as performers rather than creative collaborators. The 5 members believed they were capable of writing their own material and shaping their own sound. But many within the music industry initially dismissed those ambitions. Instead, they were expected to sing songs chosen for them while experienced professionals handled the creative process. The women resisted that approach. They wanted more than matching outfits and catchy choreography. They wanted ownership of their music. The disagreement eventually reached a breaking point. In 1995, after months of frustration, the 5 women made an extraordinary decision. They left Heart Management together, taking their demo recordings with them because they believed the songs represented their own work and future. It was a risky move. At that stage, they were an unsigned group walking away from the management company that had originally assembled them. There was no guarantee another label would even agree to meet with them, but their gamble paid off. Later in 1995, the Spice Girls signed with Virgin Records, one of the world's largest record labels. The deal gave them considerably more creative input than they had previously enjoyed. But greater freedom also came with greater responsibility. Fame came faster than anyone was ready for. When Wannabe was released on July 8, 1996, almost nobody, Not even the Spice Girls themselves could have predicted what would happen next. The song exploded onto radio stations with its unmistakable opening laugh and infectious Zig Ah, quickly climbing to #1 on the UK singles chart, where it remained for 7 consecutive weeks. The success didn't stop at Britain's borders. Within months, Wannabe had reached the top of the charts in more than 30 countries, including Australia, Canada, Germany, France, Ireland, Norway, Spain, and New Zealand. In January 1997, it also reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States, becoming the first debut single by a British girl group to top the American charts in decades. The momentum became almost impossible to comprehend. Their debut album, Spice, released in November 1996, sold more than 23 million copies worldwide, making it one of the best-selling albums by a female group in music history. Singles such as Say You'll Be There, Two Become One, Mama, and Who Do You Think You Are continued the streak of international hits, ensuring the band never disappeared from television screens or radio playlists. Record labels dream of producing one global hit. The Spice Girls seemed incapable of missing. Everywhere they traveled, airports filled with screaming fans, newspapers dedicated front pages to their movements, and television crews followed their every appearance. Success had arrived not in stages, but all at once, leaving almost no time to adjust. With that success came an almost relentless schedule. The group moved from country to country at a pace few artists ever experience, juggling promotional tours, television performances, magazine photo shoots, award ceremonies, recording sessions, rehearsals, and concerts. One day they might appear on breakfast television in London. The next, they were boarding long-haul flights for interviews in New York or Tokyo. Sleep became irregular, travel became routine, and downtime became increasingly rare. Privacy quickly became another casualty of fame. The 5 women were now international celebrities, whose every outfit, hairstyle, friendship, romance, and facial expression became tabloid material. Photographers waited outside hotels, recording studios, restaurants, airports, and even private gatherings. Ordinary activities like shopping or walking down a street often became impossible without attracting crowds. The band's working environment intensified the pressure even further. They had achieved what many could only dream of, but they had also reached a breaking point. Geri Halliwell's exit wasn't a single problem. By the spring of 1998, the Spice Girls were still one of the biggest acts in the world. Their second album, Spice World, had sold millions of copies. The feature film, Spice World, had become an international box office success. And the Spice World Tour had begun in February 1998, with sold-out arenas across Europe before heading to North America. To fans filling stadiums every night, the 5 members still looked united, energetic, and unstoppable. Then, on May 31st, 1998, everything changed. Geri Halliwell, or Ginger Spice, arguably the band's most recognizable member, announced she had left the Spice Girls. The news shocked millions because it arrived while the group was still in the middle of its world tour. The departure itself unfolded amid confusion and uncertainty. The band was staying at a hotel during the tour when Geri suddenly disappeared from the group's routine. Years later, Melanie Brown, or Mel B, recalled the chaotic atmosphere that followed. She described members of the team searching throughout the hotel, trying to locate Geri, believing she had simply stepped away or needed some time alone. Instead, it gradually became clear that this was something else entirely. Before long, the remaining 4 members learned that Halliwell had decided to leave the group entirely. In a statement released through her lawyers, Geri Halliwell said she was leaving because of differences between herself and the rest of the group. She also acknowledged the enormous pressures that accompanied their extraordinary success and expressed hope that fans would continue supporting the remaining 4 members. With the benefit of hindsight, however, it has become clear that no single explanation fully captures why Halliwell walked away. Former members have described increasing disagreements within the group as fame intensified. 5 ambitious young women who had once been united by a common dream were now navigating international superstardom while developing different ideas about music, image, business decisions, and the group's future. As commercial success grew, so did the number of decisions requiring unanimous agreement. Maintaining harmony became increasingly difficult when every album, interview, tour, endorsement, and creative choice carried enormous financial and professional consequences. Geri herself later spoke openly about another factor that shaped her emotional state during those years: grief. Before the Spice Girls achieved global fame, Halliwell had lost her father, Lawrence Francis Halliwell, who died of a heart attack in 1993. She has described struggling to process that loss while simultaneously experiencing one of the fastest rises to fame in British music history. Success brought excitement, but it also left very little time to grieve privately. The demands of recording, touring, interviews, and international travel often meant suppressing personal emotions to maintain the upbeat public image expected of Ginger Spice. Halliwell also later revealed that she had battled an eating disorder during the height of the Spice Girls' fame. In interviews and her autobiography, she discussed struggling with bulimia, describing it as an attempt to regain a sense of control over a life that increasingly felt dictated by schedules, expectations, and constant public scrutiny. Mental health experts have long noted that eating disorders often emerge during periods of intense stress, or when individuals feel they have lost control over other aspects of their lives. Then there were persistent rumors surrounding Halliwell and Mel B. Throughout the late 1990s, speculation occasionally circulated in tabloids about unusually close relationships within the group, but little concrete information ever surfaced. Then, in 2019, Mel B confirmed during an interview with Piers Morgan that she and Geri had slept together once during the Spice Girls' early years. She described it as something that happened when they were young, close friends, and enjoying life, before adding that she believed Geri would hate her for revealing it publicly. Halliwell never publicly confirmed Mel B's account. The timing of that revelation inevitably fueled renewed speculation about whether the relationship may have affected the group's internal dynamics. However, there is no credible evidence that it caused Halliwell's departure from the Spice Girls. Neither Mel B nor Halliwell has suggested that the encounter led to the breakup, and no other member of the group has identified it as a factor behind the split. Historians of the band generally view it as another piece of a far more complicated picture rather than a central explanation. By the late 1990s, the Spice Girls were already navigating creative disagreements, physical exhaustion, emotional strain, overwhelming fame, and intense commercial pressure. Any attempt to reduce Halliwell's exit to a single incident ignores the complexity of the circumstances surrounding it. When the remaining 4 members returned to the stage just days later to continue the Spice World Tour without Ginger Spice, the illusion of perfect unity had finally been broken. Fans still packed arenas, the music remained hugely successful, and the Spice Girls carried on as a quartet. And Mel C filled us in on those details. Melanie C says fear became part of everyday life. Looking back on the warning she received after the 1997 Brit Awards, Mel C admitted she lived with a lingering fear that one wrong word or one poorly judged moment could end the career she had dreamed about since childhood. Rather than brushing the incident aside as a misunderstanding, she has described it as a turning point. She has often spoken about being naturally more introverted than the confident Sporty Spice character audiences came to know. While Geri Halliwell thrived on publicity, and Mel B embraced outspoken interviews, Mel C has acknowledged struggling with anxiety and self-confidence beneath her energetic stage persona. Victoria Beckham later became accustomed to constant media attention because of her relationship with football star David Beckham, while Emma Bunton often projected warmth and optimism despite the demanding schedule. 5 different personalities reacted differently to the same extraordinary circumstances, making it increasingly difficult for everyone to process success in the same way. That contrast became one of the great paradoxes of the Spice Girls. Privately, however, Mel C has described worrying constantly about saying the wrong thing, behaving incorrectly, or letting the group down. The polished image consumed by millions of fans required enormous discipline to maintain. Faking that kind of energy, positivity, and enthusiasm is demanding. The environment surrounding the band made those pressures even more intense. Managers sought to protect one of the most profitable brands in popular music. Record labels expected every release to match or exceed previous successes, and Britain's tabloid press scrutinized virtually every aspect of the group's lives. By the late 1990s, newspapers devoted entire sections to celebrity gossip, and the Spice Girls became one of their favorite subjects. A disagreement during rehearsals, a rumored argument backstage, or even a facial expression captured by photographers could generate days of speculation. Maintaining unity had become an essential part of the group's commercial identity. When Geri Halliwell announced her departure on May 31, 1998, those fears became reality. The remaining 4 members faced an almost impossible challenge: continuing one of the biggest tours in the world without one of its defining personalities. Rather than canceling performances, Mel B, Mel C, Emma Bunton, and Victoria Beckham pressed ahead with the tour. The group also continued recording as 4 members and, in November 2000, released Forever, their 3rd and final studio album. The record debuted at number 2 on the UK albums chart and featured singles including Holler and Let Love Lead the Way, both of which reached number 1 together in the United Kingdom. Despite those achievements, Forever sold significantly fewer copies than Spice and Spice World, reflecting changing musical tastes as well as the absence of Geri Halliwell. Critics also noted a noticeable shift toward contemporary R&B influences, giving the album a very different sound from the playful pop that had originally made the Spice Girls a global phenomenon. Over the years, the remaining members themselves have acknowledged that something fundamental had changed after Halliwell's departure. It was not simply a question of replacing one singer with another. The chemistry that audiences connected with depended on the interaction between 5 distinct personalities whose strengths balanced one another in unique ways. When any one of those personalities was removed, the dynamic inevitably shifted. Geri Halliwell has since spoken about missing the group and realizing, in hindsight, how much confidence she drew from being part of the 5 together. Mel B and Geri eventually reconciled after years of occasional public tension and subsequent reunions, including the 2007 to 2008 return of the Spice Girls tour and the 2019 Spice World Stadium tour, demonstrated that genuine affection between the members had endured despite everything they experienced. Mel C's recent revelation about living in fear brings that entire story into sharper focus. What nearly broke the Spice Girls was not one catastrophic moment, but years of pressure accumulating behind one of the happiest public images in music history. Perhaps that is the greatest irony of girl power. The message proved powerful enough to inspire millions, but the women carrying it were struggling to survive the phenomenon they had created. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.